Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakarishu Sarvada. Om Shri Swaminarayanaya Namo Namaha, Shri Lakshmi Narayanaya Namo Namaha, Shri Hari Krishna Maharajaya Namo Namaha, Shri Sadgurubhyo Namo Namaha, Shri Narnarayanaya Namo Namaha. Welcome to SwaminarayanSpirituality.com. This is Sachin Karnik. Today is the 26th of November 2023. I want to offer my Anantakoti, infinite prostrations done with pranams to all the great sages in the past, present, and the future, in all the religions and traditions of the world, and to Bhagavan, the one unparalleled truth, reality, essence, being, existing in the heart of all beings at all times. With that, Bhavana and Prarthana, we are continuing our exposition of Shri Vachanamrutam, Garada Pratham number 1, and the question of Maya. Just as a quick review, that any sentences spoken in Gujarati will be translated to the best of my ability. And Vachanamrut is originally in Gujarati. I'm going to do my best to translate all the different ideas and give a commentary. I'm continuing this ongoing commentary. Please do keep in mind that the intention is to share a contemplative set of ideas. It is not an intention to promote myself or to bash anybody or to any of those kinds of things, one versus another. There's no intention to promote any one organization in the Swaminarayan Sampradaya or any Sampradaya. This is an independent study by the grace of all the gurus on the extraordinary teachings of Bhagavan Swaminarayan. So along those lines, we are moving ahead to further examine the question of Govardhan Bhai and the reply that is given by Maharaj. Govardhan Bhai asked this question about what is the Maya of God? Bhagwanani Maya kahe che tenu roop sushe. What is the form of this Maya? How can we understand what it is? Maharaj is answering that one who is a devotee, Bhagwan no bhakta hoy, tene Bhagwan ni murti nu dhyan karta, je padarth adu avine avran kare, tene Maya kahiye. It's a jam-packed, powerful, atom bomb type answer, that blows away all ignorance and gives us tremendous light. So we have been examining this answer by Shriji Maharaj, step by step by step. I'm also, as a reference, which is a free application, free app that anybody can download. It is a BAPS app, one of the more prominent organizations in the Swaminarayan Sampradaya today. And they have done a wonderful job in giving their interpretation, footnotes, certain elaborative statements on these words in the Vachanamrut. Good thing is that they have not changed anything in the Vachanamrut as far as I know. That is a very good thing. And no one should change original scriptures. So anyway, so to continue from last time, we were looking at, the whole notion of devotion. Bhagwan no bhakta, one who is a true devotee, a pure devotee. Very rare. It's not easy to even understand what that is. What does it mean even to be a true devotee? And this is where the commentators have talked about ashraya, ashrit, mumukshu, and sadak. That one who has taken ashraya, one who is a mumukshu, and one who is a sadak. To continue along these lines further is what we're going to do today. And then we will connect with many other ideas like Sankhya Vichar and other things that are very, very important and very much filled with divine guidance for us. So that is all coming up in subsequent recordings. But since we started this subject of ashraya and mumukshutvam and sadhana, I want to go further along those lines. A few things to keep in mind. Ashraya, the word ashraya literally means taking shelter or refuge. And that's a very significant psychological anchor. Particularly when difficulties happen in life, which they do at different levels, in different ways, at different stages, everybody who is born in this world is going to face challenges of all kinds. And this is why the ashraya of Bhagavan, in Gujarati we say Bhagavan no drud ashraya, sometimes it is pronounced. Strong refuge, taking strong shelter of the Lord. This is an idea in all theistic religions. Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and the Bhakti Sampradayas in Sanatana Dharma, as well as the Advaitic paths are also emphasizing Bhakti as a foundation. So Bhakti is there, and taking refuge of God and taking refuge of Gunatit Saint. Sant, Gunatit Sant. In Swaminarayan Sampradaya, lot of emphasis is there on this Ashraya of Gunatit Sant. Gunatit Sant ka meaning kya hai? What does it mean? It means that a sage who is brimming with saintliness, total saintliness, and who has, by the grace of God or maybe his guru, has moved outside the bondages of the three gunas of Maya, of Sattva Gun, Rajas and Tamas. Sattva Rajotam, Sattva Rajtam. These three gunas of Maya are binding everybody, totally. So when we take the shelter of the Lord, we are doing so because we want protection on the spiritual path. Think of it this way. If we want to climb Mount Everest, we have someone here in Delaware who has done that actually. So someone who wants to climb Mount Everest, you just cannot just go up there one day and say, I'm just going to climb Mount Everest. It doesn't work like that. It's a tremendous amount of protection, guidance, preparation. So much is required to reach that stage of that peak. And this is the whole point of Dhyan. Dhyan is the seventh limb in yoga. Dhyan is not any ordinary thing actually. Dhyan is very, very profound. Dhyan, before Dhyan is established in the Ashtanga Yoga, Yam, Niyam, Asan, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, these 6 stages, 6 anga they're called, they need to be firmly established, and then Dhyan begins. And then after that is Samadhi. So anyway, we're going to talk more about that in subsequent recordings also. But the point right now is that the shelter of the Lord, however we are, we may have Rajogun, we may have Tamogun, we may have all kinds of ego, we may have whatever faults we have. We say, oh Lord, hey Prabhu, I am yours. I am coming to you as a child. I don't know anything. Even right now, Sachin has done so many hours of this thing. It's just a small seva, whatever we can do. But that doesn't mean Sachin knows anything. There's no Sachin to even know anything, first of all. We are only just a small particle of dust at the feet of the Supreme Lord and our Guru. So with that bhavna, that feeling of taking shelter and leaving the ego aside is the biggest and most relevant act in spiritual evolution. Otherwise, just a pure Advaitic path can lead to a lot of ego and a lot of damage actually. Because people are already filled with ego, and you start saying, Aham Brahmasmi, kisi ki bhakti nahi karni, don't want to worship anybody. There are some sannyasis of that type, even today. But that is not advisable. And Shriji Maharaj has put an absolute no to that, like a big X mark on that kind of thing. That devotion is not to be stopped under any situation. Doesn't matter how far we progress spiritually. Even if you reach the Brahmic state, Maharaj himself has said the Parabrahma is yet to be realized. Anyway, different subject. I won't go into that too much right now. My point is that we need support. The mind is such. So we have to understand what is the mind running after. The mind is running after, in many ways, based on our human nature, our animal nature, our more primitive nature, something that is called psychological hedonism. I want to talk a bit about this today, and we'll wrap it around in other ways back into the question of Ashraya and into the overall question of Maya. Psychological hedonism is also known as motivational hedonism. It is an empirical theory about what motivates us. Every human being has motive. What is it? What is our motive to perform action in life? So the theory states that all actions performed by all human beings aim to increase pleasure and avoid pain. Increase pleasure and avoid pain. Sukha prapti, dukkha nivrutti. Same ideas are there in Vedanta. right? So we want to increase our enjoyments in life. And we want to avoid our pains. And somebody will say, well, yes, of course. What's new about that? What's wrong with that? First of all, we're not judging anything. We want to see things as they are, and then objectively, Sachin here is going to try to present Shriji Maharaj's viewpoint on all these things actually, and the Swaminarayan Sampradaya in connection with Sanatana Dharma, etc. So first of all, we could say, yes, we want to increase pleasure. But increase pleasure to what extent? This is where the ego comes into the picture. So this is usually understood in combination with egoism, that each person only aims at their happiness. What makes me happy? You see, so for example, Thomas Hobbes, one of the philosophers, he theorized that a person's ego was the primary impulse in determining their behavior. What determines our behavior? Sachin acts in a particular way. What motivates Sachin's actions? So Thomas Hobbes says it is our ego. And if you look at the teachings throughout the Gita, the Bhagavatam, the Vachanamrut, the writings of the Paramahansas, and all the commentaries of the Acharyas, they have all talked about the human ego. And they've all talked about surrendering the human ego, which is exactly on this point that ashraya, taking shelter of the Lord, comes into the picture. That, oh Lord, even as I am as vicious or as polluted mind or whatever it is that I am yours. Main tumhara hu. I am yours. In Swaminarayan satsang, this is also very famously stated many times. Tame amara ane hu tamaro. Atluj karvanu. Meaning what? I am yours, Lord. Bas. But that clarity, that deep act of ashray, that is the core, that is the antarik, the internal core of the mind, that is surrendering to the divine will, that thy will be done. Bhagavan Shriji Maharaj himself said, Mari marji vinare koi thi tarunu nav todai ema mane jaan jore Mara ashrita saunar nari. Maharaj said himself in this what are called Oradana Pad, and Premanand Swami has written them. The last two were written by Maharaj. He spoke them and then Premanand Swami wrote them. In there, Maharaj himself is telling the devotees that without my will, nothing happens. And the incarnations of God, or even very elevated saints, will make this statement. Everything is happening by my will. That is not the ego. That is the Parabrahma speaking. Bhagavan is speaking there. You see, so you look at the Gita. Throughout the Gita, Krishna, Bhagavan is saying, everything is happening by my will. And there is a Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. That Paramatma, that is beyond Akshar Brahma, is speaking through all the incarnations. This is the point. You see, so in such a state, when one has surrendered oneself to the divine will, Divya Ichha, Paramatma ki Ichha, and when that is done, then all of the activity of the three gunas of Maya, even though they continue, there is no disconnection with the divine will. And this is the secret of spiritual realization while living in this multifarious, multifaceted, diverse world of Prakriti. See this point very clearly. Sachin is trying to see for Sachin, not trying to convince anybody here. We have to live in the world of Prakriti. We have a body. There's no question. We have an ego. If we didn't have ego, we would not be able to survive also. But what kind of ego? A functional, transactional, interactional ego, as Vedanta says, Vyavarika Satyam. But not that kind of ego that is inflating oneself above others. Not that kind of ego that is causing harm to others. No. Not that kind of ego that is inflating vasanas. No. Although that is there in most people. That is psychological hedonism. Because human actions, as per the theory of psychological hedonism, human actions rely on beliefs about what causes pleasure. We have beliefs. And there's even a paradox of hedonism. This is very interesting. You could do a whole dissertation on this subject. But this paradox of hedonism concerns the thesis that pleasure-seeking behavior is self-defeating in the sense that it results in less actual pleasure than would result from following other motives. I'll say that again. The paradox of hedonism. Hedonism is the pursuit of pleasure. So paradox is what? It is the thesis that pleasure-seeking behavior is self-defeating. In what sense? That it actually, the amount of pleasure is less than that would be experienced by higher ideas and motives. It's a tremendous thing, to really understand. Many people have not even looked at this. But see, this is called paradox of hedonism. It is also called the pleasure paradox. It refers to the practical difficulties encountered in the pursuit of pleasure. Think about what people are doing in this world. For women for men. The relationship game that is going on, the relationship drive. Sexual is part of it, but then the emotional connection, and then eventually marriage and family and this and so many things, right? There's enjoyment in that, yes. And remember, Sachin here is not criticizing any of it. Please keep that in mind. We want to understand all of this rather than criticize anything. We want to really understand clearly and properly. So there are many practical difficulties encountered in the pursuit of pleasure. What people are doing, what have they done for the जिसको हम कहते हैं स्त्री पुरुष का भोग, the काम वासना, कितना पैसा इसमें जाता है, how much money goes into this, how much energy, how much time, how much effort, how much pursuit, how much dating, how much this, how much that, how much extramarital affairs, all kinds of things are there just on that one point. And what is it all about? It is to pursue pleasure, enjoyments of different kinds. All different range of enjoyment is there. It is there, there's no question. But see what Gunatitanand Swami said. This is where the satsang jnana comes into the picture. Gunatitanand Swami said कि जेटलू कई माया में सुख छे ते दुख विना नु होय नहीं. He says whatever experiences of sukham, this pleasure, etc., is available for us, it has some dukh within it. It has maybe a lot of dukh within it if one is not careful. If one is very careful, one can try to stay away from that dukh. But the experience itself is not ananda. Ananda is not a wave of pleasure. Waves of pleasure and enjoyment are just that. They come and go. But they exist on the substratum of the brain, the mind, and consciousness. You see, so again, there are big theories on this. Very, very significant. And I don't want to go too deep into the subject of pleasure and enjoyment and the pleasure wave and all that. We'll cover that in Garada Pratham 11 sometime in the future, maybe this lifetime, next lifetime, I don't know when. Bhagwan ki ichha. So there are many pieces here that are all interconnected. The fact of the matter is that when an individual is realizing that I feel that I'm a limited being with my own desires and whatnot, I'm taking your refuge. This is ashraya. And when this is done towards Ishtadevata. One Ishtadevata, primary. All others are respected. One is worshipped as Upasya. This is one of the main principles in Vachanamrutam. Upasya is only one. Upasna is of towards that Upasya. And Upasak is the individual doing the Upasna. Upasna, Upasya, Upasak. And all the other past incarnations and sages and saints and everybody else, they are worthy of namaskaram, worthy of puja. They're worthy of, obviously God is only one. But the relationship, the establishment of the relationship, which I've mentioned already in several recordings, and I'm trying not to repeat too many things, but it's okay if it's repeated, because it needs to be repeated, because we want to make it real as opposed to just ideas. The establishment of the relationship with the chosen deity, this is called Ishta Bhakti, Ishta Devata. And the relationship with the Ishta Devata is deeply personal. It is characterized by love, devotion, and personal connection. Now, in that ashraya, there is sharanagati, and I'm just reviewing this from the last recording. So, in that ashraya encompasses sharanagati, which means complete surrender to the Lord. This surrender is not a sign of weakness, but a recognition of the divine as the ultimate source of strength and guidance, which we mentioned last time. It involves trusting in the divine plan and accepting the will of God with humility and devotion. That is called sharanagati. You see, so when we develop these kinds of qualities, this type of psychological mindset, then bhakti begins to really open up. So bhakti deepens. Devotees seek to deepen their connection with God through all kinds of practices. The connection is enhanced. The individual's life is fundamentally transformed because of this, because of ashraya. You see? Now, we did start talking about mumukshutvam a bit last time. I want to go into this little bit further today. There is a very big role of ashraya in achieving mumukshutva. Ashraya is the refuge, but when one takes refuge, the journey towards moksha begins. The journey towards moksha begins by the devotee cultivating devotion and trust. Devotion and trust is cultivated deeply by sadhana and by Guru Krupa. This is the role of Guru also, to show how this is done, and they have already done so. They have already cultivated that state. So by seeing them, by asking them questions, by being with them, we are able to see their perspective, their understanding, their vision. We can see it. And then through that, devotion and trust continues. Devotion and trust develops within us for spiritual growth. What is the spiritual growth actually? So spiritual growth, as per Sriji Maharaj's answer, this growth is where one is prepared for dhyan of murti of Bhagwan. Bhagvat dhyan. Dhyan of murti is a tremendous thing. We generally go to temples, we bow down and do some puja, archana, prayer, this, that, XYZ, some bhajans, whatever. And then we go back home and we're on our own. Dhyan is a totally different level altogether. As we mentioned before, dhyan is that chintan, ekagrata purvak chintan. As in Gujarati, in the footnote is written, ahi dhyan etle je vastuni dharana karvama ave છે tej vastuma prayatna vinaj vrittiyoni ekagrata. Vrittiyoni ekagrata means the synchronicity into the one single pointed focus, concentration, belief towards the Lord. And in what sense? Without psychological friction or fragmentation. This is the key. So that is what we want to get to. So to get to such a stage, the mind has to be really prepared. Mind, body, everything has to be prepared for that. Without that preparation, it's not going to happen. We will not be able to reach a stage of dhyan. You see, so it is a state where without effort, effortless movement of the mind. See, it says here, prayatna vinaj vrittiyoni ekakarta. So beautifully written. I've repeated that sentence several times in our several recordings in the past. Bhagwan ki jo murti hai, that is real. That strong faith that the Lord is real. And everything is His Aishwarya, His power. Everything is His. The Maya is also His only. It's not somebody else's. Mama Maya duratya, mam eva ye prapadyante. Maya belongs to God, is God's power only. There is nothing really independent of God. Only God is independent. Bhagwan is independent. As per Swaminarayan Tattvagnan, that Kishore Murti that is inside the Akshardham, that is independent. Other than that, everything else is dependent. And that is the Vishishtadvaita of Bhagwan Swaminarayan. That Purushottam Narayan is independent. Everyone and everything is dependent on that Supreme Being. And that is only one, and not two. That is the most extraordinary idea. And it is a tattvic realization. So when we are aiming for this fantastic realization, humility, devotion, unconditional love are essential for spiritual advancement. This is the surrender. It's the interplay of surrender and the longing for realization. That is mumukshutvam. Mumukshutvam is the longing for realization accompanied by surrender at the feet of the Lord, surrendering of the ego primarily, which is what we don't want to do. We want to do what we want to do. That's the difference. So when we surrender the ego, and then the longing for realization is where the force of satsang increases. The force of bhajan, kirtan, manan, chintan, force of scriptural readings, force of deeper study, force of staying more in spiritual environments, this increases further. So that is the interplay of surrender and longing. And when this surrender and longing really mix fantastically, the divine qualities, Divya Sadgun, as it is called, they begin to open. Humility, Nirmana Moha Jita Sanga Dosha. Humility opens up. Bhakti opens up. Sneho Bhaktischa Madhave. Mahatma Gnana Yug Bhuri. Sneho Bhaktischa Madhave. Devotion actually opens up. And with that devotion, meaning that there is this relational, beautiful bond with Ishtadevata. And this is what we want to establish. It is the establishment of the bond with Ishtadevata. And in that establishment of this bond, effort is made. That is called Purusharth, Purush Prayatna. Karyani number 12, Vachanamrut, is called Purush Prayatnanu Vachanamrut. You see, so the effort that is made, do we have to make effort? Yes. Why? For Krupa. Bhagwan ki Krupa, for the grace of the Lord. It is not something like, that we make so much effort and God has to bless us. It's not like that. He just sees. God is only seeing how badly you want. You really want moksha, liberation? Okay, you can have it. He'll just remove the Maya. The Maya is His. But we want something from Maya. Our mind, our brain, our programming. We want some experiences. They say, okay, you want those, then you can have those. That's the way it goes. So personal longing and the effort, this all combines together. And as effort increases, but it increases to the point where there is no more effort. The point of placing effort in sadhana is to get to the point of dhyan and dharana dhyan where without effort, see, vastuma prayatna vina vinaj vrittiyoni ekakarta. Beautifully written. I just love that sentence. The commentators have written that. Without effort, there is ekagrata. Ekakar. Not just ekagrata, but there's ekakarta. Ekakarta means ek akar. Ekakarta means that it has become one. There's a oneness in that. The mind is absorbed with the divinity of the murti. That murti is divine. It's absorbed inside. And in Swaminarayan Sampradaya, there are thousands of these what are called murtina pado. These are bhajans and padas. These are poems about the murti of God. Bhagwan ki murti. There are so many. Premanand Swami has written so much. Muktanand Swami, Brahmanand Swami, so many. Manjukeshananda Swami. These are the amazing paramahansas of Maharaj. All these kavi saints, these poetic saints. They wrote thousands and thousands and thousands of these spiritual poems about the murti, of Maharaj himself, Murti of Bhagwan Krishna, Murti of the incarnations, about God in general, we can say, and about the glory of saints. So many bhajans are there, and it is amrutam. This sampradaya, even though there are so many different paramparas and whatever, that's a different subject. But the core of it is nothing but amrutam, divine bliss. And this is why Sachin here, as a means of seva at the feet of Maharaj and all the great saints, to present this to the world in this way, and to leave it at the feet of the Lord, that's all, nothing else. That there is beyond extraordinary truth, beyond extraordinary joy in bhakti, in the teachings of Shriji Maharaj, in the writings of the Paramahansas. But it is all in Gujarati. Some of it is in Sanskrit, some of it is in Hindi also, or Vraj Bhasha, different languages are there. Hardly, there's not much in English. There is some, but the translations are nowhere near adequate, and some of them are just not even done correctly. It's not criticizing anybody, but that's just what it is. That is why we're trying to open this in a way that is appealing to everybody in the world. And the spirituality of Shriji Maharaj, of Swaminarayan Bhagwan, opens up 100%. That is the goal here. Anyway, having said that, let's continue our journey forward here. All right, spiritual evolution. When one is a true mumukshu is one who desires liberation. It's a very fantastical, amazing state. Mumukshutva is often seen as a higher state of spiritual evolution. Evolution meaning what? Let's go back to this hedonism idea. Evolution out of the limitations of psychological hedonism. That's what it is in reality. Psychological hedonism, yes, that is a motivating force. The whole world is running after that. We don't even need any theories for that. You can just see it actually. We do need theories, but you can see it. It's nothing unknown to us, right? These politicians running after whatever they're running after, and it just goes on. The different pleasures, increasing pleasures of all kinds, and they are there. They are ego-driven motives, and they are there. And there is a whole hedonic brain function that goes along with this. That's where the show goes on. So it is a transformation out of psychological hedonism into a much more introspective state where the mind evolves further. The mind grows, actually. It grows into intense spiritual longing. It's like this, people cry, right? Because of the pain and suffering in this world. How many cry for the longing for the Lord? It's a different kind of crying. There are those who cry, who intensely they are asking for God. They cannot bear the separation with the Lord. This is Gopi Bhav, Gopi Bhakti. Gopikas of the Bhagwan Krishna's time. They were intensely in love with Lord Krishna. And that intensity was so much that they could see Krishna everywhere. And then at one point they said, I am Krishna. Aham Krishna. This is the intensity of Prema Bhakti. So this is spiritual evolution. Spiritual evolution occurs when there is intense longing. And in that intense longing, devotion increases substantially. It is heightened devotion. It's not simply our usual type of devotion. No, it's not simply of that type. It is much, much more than that. It is much, much, much more than that ordinary type of devotion. It is devotion that has taken on proportions where the bhakta is lost in God, totally lost in the Lord. That opens the door into the gunatit state, Brahmic state. There are sages like this. There are many of them. I don't want to give the names right now. I will go into that when we do separate talks on that. There are so many that are lost this way, and they are present on the earth for the benefit of the world. Lost not in terms of like in a negative, they're lost in God. That is the thing, to be lost inside the murti of God. That is dhyan. See, so this is all very beautiful. And now, a couple more points here. That mumukshutvam, to reach a true state of mumukshutvam, one has to absolutely internalize the fact that this world is temporary. Awareness of the temporary nature of worldly pleasures. It's all temporary. But then somebody might counter-argue and say, wait a minute, yeah, this is all temporary. But then what? We still want to enjoy the world. Well, enjoy that. I mean, you enjoy whatever you want, but it's all temporary. It's not the Brahmananda. And see, the difficulty here is that people who try to realize that Brahmananda, they're not going to just get that, or that's not going to open up just like that. It doesn't happen that way. Once in a while you get some glimpse of some spiritual reality here and a spiritual realization. But it is a lifelong evolution. Multiple lives. It's not even one life. But if one wants a thorough evolution in this lifetime, then one can jump into mumukshutvam 100%. And in that, the yearning for spiritual liberation, it will take one by grace out of the cycle of birth and death. It is the seeking of a permanent bliss, permanent spiritual realized state. That is a Brahmic state. Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha. Nainam Prapya Vimuyati. Sthitvasya Mantakalepi Brahma Nirvana Mruchati. It is the last verse in chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. Alright, there's a lot more to be said about just this subject. I do want to spend another hour on this, probably tomorrow. And then I want to get into Sankhya Vichara and some other subjects. Please remember that these recordings are just for my own benefit. Please give me your blessings, your good wishes to continue this path forward. Any comments, ideas, anything anybody wants to say about this, please do let me know. Any improvements you like to see or anything you'd like to see covered, any specific points you want to make, send them to me. I'll be able to incorporate them beautifully, wonderfully inside these series of recordings. This is an ongoing, lifelong journey. There's so much to be said, but we say what we can in the time that is available to us. Hari Ananta, Hari Katha Ananta. They say that even Ganeshji and Sharda Devi and Sheshanag, they are not able to fully explain, even with their intelligence, the glory of the Supreme Lord. They are also the Supreme. They are also just forms of God only. But even if they cannot explain 100%, who are we? There's no question, there's no question about us trying to explain anything in terms of any significant level. It is significant to us, but it is endless. It is infinite in nature, and that is the beauty. That is the beauty of spiritual contemplation. So having said that, I want to offer my prostrations to all the great sages and to Bhagwan and ask for forgiveness for any mistakes made in this recording. Karacharnakatam va, kayajam, karmajam va, shravanajam va, manasam va, paradam, vihitam avihitam va, sarvametat shamasva. Jai Jai Karunabde Shri Mahadeva Shambho. Om Shri Swaminarayanai Namo Namah. Shri Sadgurubhyo Namo Namaha.